Hello listeners, and welcome to the fourth program in our 5-part series of Lesson Accounting, which was produced for grade 9 learners, the JSC, and anybody else who has an interest in the subject. My name is Mr. Hanganeni Levine-Wheeler, and today we will learn about Treaties and the Creditors Journal. Please, as usual, be in possession of a pen and a notebook so that you can take notes for all the important points that you are going to discuss in class. And don't forget to take part in the quiz at the end of the program as usual. Creditors' journals are used to record credit purchases, and debtors' journal is a journal where transactions of a credit sale are recorded. At the end of this program, you should be able to identify, or you must know how to record the credit sale and the credit purchases. And you must also be able to record sales return and purchases return.
John, how are you? You look so exhausted. What is the problem?
I'm okay, man. Thanks for the concern. Yesterday we slept very late. I was watching my sister prepare the debtors journal. You know, I also want to be an accountant, so I was trying to learn how the transactions are entered into the journals.
Wow, that's great. So what did you learn?
Just a few things. The debtors journals include recording of sales and dates of sales, among others. Let us go to class. Hopefully we'll learn more there.
Good morning, class.
Good morning, sir.
May we please take our seat? And let's stop the chat. In today's lesson, we are going to learn about subsidiary books, mainly the debtors and the creditors return journals. Can any one of you guys know or have a clue what a subsidiary books are?
Sir, let me go first. Subsidiary books are the books in which we record first transactions, such as the sales of goods. Examples of subsidiary books are cash books, debtors journal, amongst others.
That's cool, John. Debtors journal deals with the recording of credit sales. The seller keeps a copy of the invoice issued to the buyer. These copies are used to make the entries in the debtors journal.
But how do we record the debtors journal?
When recording a debtors journal, you have to bear in mind that there are things that you need to enter there, such as the document number, the date, the details, folio, and amount. Whereby in the document number or in the document column, you must record the invoice number for that specific invoice. Secondly, the date is exactly the date of the transaction. And in the detail column, you must show the name of that debtor or names of debtors. Folio column, it shows the page in the business ledgers where the debtor's account is kept. And amount, you write exactly the amount indicated on the goods sold on credit in the amount column.
Thank you, sir. Sir, can you please give us a question to work on so we can see if we can apply this knowledge correctly?
Of course, definitely. Accounting is easy to understand with practice. Let's answer this one. For instance, on the 8th of March 2010, Andy Mann bought goods on credit by JD Wholesalers for the amount of 8,000, invoice number S23.
Okay, let me try. Here's my answer. Firstly, record the invoice number, which is S23. Second, record the date, which is the 8th. Third, record the details, which is the name of the debtor, for example, main. Fourth, record the folio number as DL1. And then lastly, record the amount, which is 800. Are we on the right path?
That's marvelous, actually. It gives us the confidence to move on when we are all grasping the content and the concepts. Always remember to create a 4-column table, and always remember to reduce the size of the dates, invoice, and the folio column. If we know much about the Creditors Journal, it definitely means we also know a bit about the Debtors Journal, simply because they go hand in hand.
The Debtors Returns Journal is where we record goods returned to the business that are bought on credit or goods that were returned by debtors. A credit note is usually issued to the customer. Number 1, document number column. You must record the credit note number from the business. Number 2, the date. You record the date when the goods were returned. Number 3, the details columns, which shows the name of the debtors who returned the goods. Number 4, the folio column, which shows the page in the business ledger where debtors account is kept. And number 5, the amount column, which shows the worth of the goods returned.
I foresee a great accountant in you, Ndeshi. And now let's tackle the next one. On the 14th March 2010, Andyman retains some of the goods that were bought on credit from JD wholesalers of 80 Namibian dollars. The credit note number here is M51. The date is 14. The detail is Amen. Folio is DL1 since it's debtors ledger number 1. Amount is 80 Namibian dollars, which is also the total.
That is interesting. So you are really making it easy to understand.
Yes, it is easy. Just understand the concept and that's all. And everything will go smoothly. Now let's move on to the next journal, which is the Creditors Journal. The Creditors Journal is where we record goods bought on credit from suppliers. Records of Creditors Journal are written up from the original invoice sent to the buyer by the supplier. Remember, the business will renumber this invoice to follow in a numerical order. Creditors Journal is recorded the very same way as we record the Debtors Journal. When recording in a Creditors Journal, number 1, in the number column, you must record the invoice number from the supplier. Date of the transaction, you record it on the date column. The detail, you show the name of the creditor. The folio column, you show the page in the business ledger where the credit account is kept. The amount column is to indicate the amount of goods sold on credit. Okay, let's just take a simple example. Like on the 8th of March 2010, the business bought goods by credit from Ocha wholesalers for the amount of 1,000. Invoice number C46. Who can try this example? Anyone?
Okay, sir, I'm going to try this one. So, invoice number is C46. The date is the date of the transaction, which is the 8th of March. Details will be Osho wholesalers, the name of the suppliers. In the folio, it will be CL1. Amount will be 1,000, and when you balance everything off, the total will be 1,000.
That's correct. It's a splendid work, and I'm very impressed. So keep the standard, boy.
Thank you, sir.
Next, we move on to the Creditors Return Journal. A credit note is issued when the business returned goods that were damaged back to the supplier, or maybe if they expired. A credit note is usually issued by the business. The creditors' return are recorded the same way as the debtors' returns journal. In a creditors' return journal, it requires the document number column, where you must record the credit note number that was issued from the creditor, the date of the credit notes when the goods were returned. The detail column, you also show the name of the creditor to whom the goods were returned. Folio column shows the page in the business ledger where the creditor's account is kept. And the amount column shows the worth of the goods returned. This one is for Ndeshi. Please attend the following example. On the 14th of March 2020, Ocha wholesalers issue a credit note which is numbered as CN20 for the good returns by the business worth of 100 Namibian dollars.
Yes, I can, sir. Here is my answer. The credit note number would be CN20. The date would be the 14th of March. The details would be JD Wholesalers Ltd. The folio would be CL1. The amount, which is also the same as the total, would be 100 Namibian dollars.
Our next lesson will be on income statement. Please read in advance for you to get the clue about the income statement.
Thank you, sir. Today I learned that subsidiary books are the books in which we first record transactions, such as the Debtors Journal. The Debtors Journal deals with the recording of credit sales. The sellers keep a copy of the invoice issued to the buyer. These copies are used to make entries in the Debtors Journal. Debtors Returns Journal deals with recording goods returned to the business that are bought on credit. A credit note is usually issued to the customer.
Oh, Desha, you learned a lot. Let me also try. Here's what I learned today. The Creditors Journal deals with recording goods bought on credit from the suppliers. Records of the Creditors Journal are written up from the original invoice, sent to the buyer by the supplier. Creditors Journal is recorded the same way as the Debtors Journal. A credit note is when the business returns goods that are damaged back to the supplier. A credit note is usually issued to the business. The Creditors Returns Journal deals with recording of goods returned to creditors by the business, and Creditors Returns Journal is recorded the same way as the Debtors Returns Journal.
Marvelous. And that brings us to the end of today's session. But before I dismiss you guys, here is the question of the day. Credit sales transactions are recorded in which journal? Number 1, Creditors Journal. Number 2, Debtors Journal. Or number 3, which is Debtors Returns Journal. This program was written by Tatenda Ndawe. So until next time, goodbye, Shapis.
This program was brought to you by NAMCOL with funding from the Ministry of Education, Arts and Culture and the Commonwealth of Learning.